cannot be so.
Sam, you can't. Sam, no one can take something you don't have. You don't possess. All right. All right. Redeem yourself, young man. All right.
No, to be fair, he did it yesterday. He did it yesterday.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, because there was no pressure on him. For what?
Lucas tells his resume.
Yeah, our resume. You want it?
How's that go, bro?
That should be fun.
Slice and
Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait, just no. I'm not.
To get the job.
Your name is Lucas Dunn,
Yeah.
and you live. Okay, anyway. Is that your cell number or your home number?
That's something. I
Time to spam. Okay.
Puts it in the Vermont.
No, I'm just gonna spam this one.
Get bored, call him.
Just spam the phone with ridiculous memes and gifs. GIFs. All right. So here's the thing. The very first thing you put on here was what? What was your very first skill?
don't even remember.
Yeah, I would forget it too. Fluent in English.
Maybe I should have said conversational.
No. English don't. It's a given. But
maybe he's
no. But then it'd be a written language. But like a little Spanish, that's where you would put something like conversation.
Well, I'm not conversational though. I can just be like, yes, you are. They say hola, and I'll be like,
All right.
okay, to avoid it.
Fascinating. Okay, here we go. The Americas after independence. After a little digression from Mr. Dunn. All right. Excellent. A resume to have a class job. I like that.
He's the only
I
one.
like
No,
that.
I want that to have an actual job.
I
just had it.
What was in your book?
I'm assuming you had extra copies, so you're gonna pawn this one off. Here, hire me. All right. All right, Lucas, because you have a resume, you are hired. All right. The Americas. Colonial America. There it is. Back in the day, North Carolina went all the way to the Mississippi River. In fact, every colony went back as far as they thought it could go. That's it. Yeah, long term. That's right. All right. So there is America. There's stuff was seen in 1782. Blah blah blah. For the entire history of colonial America, Maine was actually Massachusetts. All right. There you go. Look, there's America's Australia. All right. I have an answer. Let's hope they match.
What's that like thin, like piece above Georgia? Like that thin little strip.
So that was
South Carolina.
it was ceded. It was given to Georgia from South Carolina. So in 1787, that becomes Georgia.
Wait, so before South Carolina was like this, and then it had that like little
Tail. Yes.
like a
There was a tadpole, and then they got rid of the tail and became South Carolina frog. What?
So Pennsylvania owned part of Canada.
Yes.
How come?
No. This little spot right here.
Oh.
That's just where they wrote it. Yeah. Okay.
Wait, they actually want that little spot?
Look, man, that has some sort of value. It's on the lake. That's, it's on Lake Erie. That's kind of an important thing. All right. Ontario. Anyway. All right. So this was early days of America. Sorry. Yeah, America. North America. Well, 2/3 of North America. No, all of it, because there's Mexico, part of North America. After the Constitution was ratified in 1788.
By every state. Right, by every state.
That was 1789, and the Bill of Rights was 1791.
Hey, was not Delaware the first to ratify it?
Yes.
That's why it's called the first state.
The United States sought political isolation from Europe. So, their method of dealing with the world that will end with submarines and a cruise ship begins in 1788. And then so their two goals are westward expansion and political stability, because as I've said, stable government, rich country.
This is what does it mean to ratify something?
Pass.
To what?
To pass it.
Okay.
Good question. All right. No, don't point to the board. The eagle looks to peace. Ah, that's why its head is that way. I did not know
I
that.
didn't know that either.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this westward expansion the whole manifesto?
Eventually, no. Eventually, it's just getting to the Mississippi River. Yeah, because remember, when we're independent, we're here. So it's here, and then it's, oh look, there's more. Yeah, sir.
What does deep word agreement mean?
Of many one. Out of many one. Okay, so
Many states, one country.
and well, many people, yes, many colonies, one country, many people, one nation. Sorry, yeah. All right. Moving on. I did not know that. Though. Sorry, you did the nerd out there for just a second. That's like cool. All right, that's like a Jeopardy thing. That's like you talk to your uncle. That one guy thinks he knows everything. Oh yeah, well you know why? Looks to. In 1797, George Washington's farewell address warned us about creating alliances with other countries. I've been thinking about this, and this question entered my head last week for some reason. I honestly don't know why. And I had to, after reflection, this is probably the greatest president we've ever had.
He didn't want political parties.
And he stepped down, and he had to start it, like figure. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, not my favorite. I had nothing against the man, but Jonathan Fitzgerald Kennedy. What? Because of what he hoped for.
The minute.
No. Laugh all you want, children. But that idea of dreaming and being bigger than ourselves and all that, that's was part of the move too. And to stick it to them. So, but remember, he created Peace Corps, he created Job Corps, he created all those things by getting the youth. He was the first person to truly motivate the under 25, under 30 vote. All right.
Really?
Yeah.
So they just didn't want to vote like before?
Well, I mean, it's the under 30 is still one of the lowest turnouts consistently and statistically every election. They all say, yeah, my air Jesus. All right. What are the geographic conditions that make Washington's policy of isolationism a possibility for U.S.? Again, in 1787 or 97, how is isolationist so much easier? Well, we're an ocean away. We're an ocean away. And it's 1797, so it's still by sail. So it makes it easy. We have been fortunate. Our geography has made it has really been beneficial in our development as a nation. When you're surrounded on all sides by water and Canada and tundra, it is easy to develop and to develop wealth and economic prosperity, but two, to develop that sense of isolation, because with respect to large, powerful nations in the world, we kind of work. We joined the rest of the world in 2001. Yes.
Do you think if George Washington had been like politically corrupt, do you think the U.S. would have pulled like been with failed just because of that? He had like more power than
Well, okay. First of all, the question was no. I'm repeating the question because you're way back there. Maybe they want to know. Maybe they have input. The question raised was, do I think if George Washington had been politically corrupt, which assumes I know he wasn't, but would America have failed, collapsed, not worked? It's an excellent question. Well, it's a good question. Would it have collapsed? I don't know, because we think of political corruption today because, well, today, and there's such a history of politics and politics being dirty at the local level, the state level, the federal level, whatever. Back then, the idea of a president is so new that I would hedge to the side of no, I think we'd be okay. Maybe not quite, it wouldn't be the same trajectory, obviously, because the history would change. But because we have nothing, we have no frame of reference, and we're not going back to a king, although Hamilton did want presidents to serve for life. Yes.
So like kind of piggybacking off of this question, if he was corrupt with that, you said it would change the directory, would that make the United States as a whole even now more so corrupt than we are?
Maybe. Again, now you're dealing with fault. You're dealing with like what's that called when you make up a lot of hypotheticals and a lot of sort of alternative histories. And again, I think because he's at the beginning and because there's, I don't want to ruin too much for you next year, but because of sort of the ideals and the enthusiasm and everything associated with the foundation of the country, I think we'd be okay. Now, if you remember this question, ask your U.S. history teacher, ask your government teacher next year if they feel the same way. I'd be very interested to find out what they think. All right. So steering clear of foreign entanglements was one of George Washington's wishes for the people of America. That and no political parties. Oh, George. Heck.
Anyways, political parties.
No.
Since they're like not political government.
No. In 1823, the Monroe Doctrine. Remember him, the guy who built Liberia? Look at that. Yeah. He warned against European meddling in the Americas. This doctrine basically said, listen, we're not going to take this land, just so you understand, Europe. We're not going to take this. We could if we wanted to, but we're not. So you shouldn't either. Leave it alone, because if you take it, well, then we can't. So it was just a way to kind of keep, in keeping with this idea of isolationism. You can see where this is going a little bit as we move to World War I. In keeping with George Washington's isolationism, now a lot of stuff is left out. You know, our first foray with pirates and dealing with a Muslim adversary and Louisiana Purchase and a second war with England because England tries to woo us back. You know you want me back. You know you can't do better than me. Come on. That's what the War of 1812 was. Yes.
What's the Muslim?
The Barbary pirates off the coast of Spain were Muslim. And that was one of Thomas Jefferson's first foreign policy issues he had to deal with was the Barbary pirates. All right, one of America's first foreign policy issues. And then again, the occasion to judge proper for asserting, okay, again, do not come here in a nutshell. Leave these people to themselves. England, stay out. France, stay out. Russia, stay out. Here is America. It expands very quickly. The Louisiana Purchase in 1803 doubles the size of America. Thomas Jefferson took a check and paid Napoleon. Not he didn't, but he authorized paying Napoleon for this land. I think $15 million. Which he had no presidential authority to do. Remember, who controls finances in the government?
The Congress.
The Congress, the Treasury, the Congress. Treasury, state. Let's go. The Florida Purchase Treaty, the annexation of Texas, the Gadsden Purchase. Then we're going to win the Mexican War and get all of that. And then the Oregon Territory that we share with Great Britain. I don't, whatever. And then up there is Alaska, but that's Russian at the moment. So, bought it. Seward's Folly. A guy named Seward offered Russia lots of money for it. And then they're like, oh, look, oil. Not so folly now. Okay.
So this one guy bought it for the United States?
He was a senator. Like I remember, he was somebody worked. He was in the government. Yeah.
So did Congress buy it?
Congress, but it was his. He proposed the bill.
Oh.
Remember, people who propose bills get their name on them. Like you guys, you propose things that go into this class or the syllabus or that class and that syllabus, and it becomes your name. Blah 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 blah. All More stuff. In 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo ended the Mexican-American War. U.S. took all of that. All of this is what the Germans are going to say, hey, Mexico, you help us keep America out of the war, and after we win, you can get all that back. That was a plan to keep America from entering the war by making them busy at home. So there you go. I always find it interesting how the American history in California is taught. Like, did they begin in 1840? All right. Yes, Mexico must be thoroughly chastised. Let our arms now be carried with a spirit which shall teach the world that while we are not forward for a quarrel, America knows how to crush as well as how to expand. Walt Whitman. That's not very hippie right there for Walt Whitman, but so there you go. I guess he hasn't quite started to transcendentalize yet. I don't know. Maybe we should just annex Canada and Mexico and make super America. Yes. I don't know. Probably not.
That'd be pretty hard to go.
Be very well, you govern it locally like we do now. At a time when conservative elements in Europe attempted to reassert the power of kings, the U.S. made democracy more democratic. Anybody know what president that was? Katie, what happened to your finger? At the beach? Okay. No, not James Madison. It was Andrew Jackson. After Monroe with Jackson. Jackson made it more democratic. He saw himself as the people's president. Our 45th president, President Trump, was a huge fan of Jackson. And he tried to sort of mirror that people's president. The American men spit, talk of elections, and the price of produce, and spit again. That's what this French writer thought of American men. All right. There you go, carrying a drunk guy to vote. Or, I'm sorry, I'm assuming an incapacitated gentleman is being taken to the polls to cast his vote. There they are sitting there giving them drinks. Again, this picture is why there are rules to how far you can be from a polling place, and campaign. Back in the day when there was voter fraud, and typically at the local level, they would take people from precinct to precinct to precinct in cities, give them drinks, and just go vote here. Come on, let's go, and take them to go vote here, and then go vote here. So in the city of New York, in the middle and late 1800s, many more people voted than lived there. This record keeping is what it is. Today's not like that. All right. By 1830s, nearly all the states had dropped property requirements to vote. Sorry, women, African Americans, still can vote, but you don't have to own property anymore to vote. Yes, ma'am.
It's
It's on the picture. All right. Vermont and Kentucky have universal white male suffrage. Every white man in those two states can vote, regardless of your station in life. In Pennsylvania, Delaware, New Hampshire, and Georgia, there were taxpayer qualifications. And in the other states, this was 1800, by the way, all the green states meant you had to own property to vote. And remember, depending on the election, depending on the elections you could vote in, sometimes it was dependent upon how much land you own. So even our democracy, even that sort of that classist industrialization, that whole middle class thing, trickles into politics as well. Yes, sir.
So it says African American. Wasn't it all people of color, really?
There were in the early 1800s. They are the predominant color. Because remember, everything west of Mississippi we don't know about yet. Native Americans aren't citizens, so they're not. I mean, unless they live here. And no, they get the right to vote last. They get the right to vote after women. Oh, the irony of being the first people here. Okay. Then there's by 1830. North Carolina and Tennessee, of course, had property qualifications. And ironically, South Carolina was one of the states with universal. Actually, it's not ironic that they let all white men vote. What am I saying? I'm from South Carolina. That makes perfect sense. Okay. And then the other ones had taxpayer qualifications. So you had to basically be paying taxes to vote. That's not small government. Anyway. All right. Property qualifications to vote is tyranny because there was one class of men with privileges which are denied to another. All right. Tyranny, that's still ringing the bell, even in 1830. Tyranny, back from 1750. Tyranny, even today. Trail of Tears. 1830, the Indian Removal Act forced Native Americans to move west of the Mississippi River. Cherokee nations were forced on the Trail of Tears, but not all of them. Some of them ran away and hid in the mountains of North Carolina. Which is why, if you've ever gone up there and gone and seen the play Into These Hills, them's the hills they're talking about. Andrew Jackson was responsible for this. The Supreme Court justice at that time, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. Shame on me. The Cherokee in Georgia actually went to the Supreme Court and filed a petition because basically they wanted the Native Americans moved because the Native Americans were on good farmland. Shock. The Supreme Court of the United States sided with the Cherokee and said, you're right, you have rights to this land. Now, for those of you not in civics, and maybe not little constitutional nerdlings, when the Supreme Court passes judgment, it becomes law of the land. So if the Supreme Court recognized, heard, and agreed with the Cherokee of the state of Georgia, Cherokee in the state of Georgia, ipso facto, what have those Cherokee become? Citizens of the United States, protected by the Constitution. To which Andrew Jackson said about the Supreme Court justice, he approved it, I'm paraphrasing, let him enforce it. And he kicked them out anyway. The Cherokee in Georgia acculturated with the Americans, dressed the same, spoke the same, worked with them side by side. They were part of the community, but there were those who wanted the land and other pieces of land, and off they went. All right. To Oklahoma, because so much better there. Okay. Okay, that's just somebody speaking about, no. That's just a long trope about Trail of Tears and how history will remember this. This is Manifest Destiny Westward Expansion. That's the picture of that's America going west. The U.S. economy grew quickly in the early 1800s, combining a burgeoning industrial north and the Cotton Kingdom south. The slave was the southern factory, in a way. And the North also wanted, well, the northern factory owner, the northern shopkeeper, the northern shipper, the guy who ships stuff off to England, they want slavery too. Because it keeps costs down and profits up. So this abolition movement is slow. I see you. It's slow to start. Is it bathroom or a question? What's up?
What's the white march like with West Virginia?
That?
Yeah, following.
Being grown.
Black. No, the white.
It's just nothing. It's because you've got the green is cotton, the orange is corn, or the yellowish orange is corn. The darker is dairy and cattle and hay. Then you got sugar is the pink, blue is rice, and then green is tobacco. So it's either nothing or mining. Yeah, and remember too. Yeah, well, not in Florida, in Texas. But remember too, we're also not up. They're not heavily populated yet, and things of that sort. So that's just showing you where we're growing and industrializing first. All right, and again, these factories, depending upon when we are in the 1800s, they aren't going to be there. Most cotton is sent somewhere else to be processed in the beginning. All right. Immigration to the United States in the early 1800s. This is a little difficult to figure out, but it's not this. Anybody? Oh, you know what kind of map this is? No.
Let me see the color. I just see English and
There's colors.
areas with confidence.
There's colors. I know that's really difficult, but there's colors there. All right, when you see maps with color, it's chloropleth. The dots make it a dot map. Anyway, immigration to the United States in the early 1800s. All that green is Irish. So the Irish come, the English, there's other Northern Europeans somewhere. And then Germans. Germans are going to be in Pennsylvania. You can't see it in this slide. Pennsylvania and parts north. Germans are going to be up here, and then they go west into Wisconsin, Minnesota, in that part of the world. All right. Amish are German. Use of slavery in the South and millions of immigrants in the North, mostly Irish, and Germans, key to U.S. economic growth because you can hire them for less money than a native. Which is why the natives developed the Nativist Party in the 1800s, or the Know Nothing Party, to try and stop immigration, because immigration affects wages. You know, immigration is good or bad depending on which side of the immigration scale you reside. But we're America then. We need people. This is, the early part of our lives here. All right. Frederick Douglass. Growing abolitionism in the North and the question of the extension of slavery into Western territories created much drama between the people who were opposed to slavery and the people who was for it. What do we do with these new states? And many, many compromises are drawn out to keep the balance between free states and slave states the same in Congress. Some states were allowed to decide for themselves, which is why there was a lot of fighting in those states. Hello, Kansas. But it was a tough thing to deal with as America grew west. What do we do with? What do we do with that land? Frederick Douglass. That's what I thought. There's Frederick Douglass, and this is his 4th of July speech. We talked about what does the 4th of July mean to a black man? Absolutely nothing. In a nutshell. All right. That is not the Lincoln from the Hall of Presidents. 1861, 1865, the Civil War. Pretty much begins with Lincoln's election. Is official by South Carolina shortly thereafter. He emancipates the slaves, which really does nothing. Because what the Emancipation Proclamation does is it frees all the slaves in the states in rebellion against the United States. Now stop for a second. Those 11 states have formed their own country. Does the president's law have jurisdiction? No. So he freed nobody, really. The Emancipation Proclamation freed nobody.
Until we absorb them.
We didn't absorb them and kick their butt and made them come back with their tail between their legs.
Yes.
Okay.
That means it does.
But it doesn't. When it was written, it has no effect.
Oh, but it has effect.
He didn't.
Well, after that fact, they just altered the Constitution.
He didn't want to free the slaves.
How do they get all the way to like New Orleans?
Who?
Like the bat, like how do they get?
Water, Mississippi River. Yeah. It was more symbolic as a gesture to kind of get the people to get behind this war, because the very first few years of this war, the Confederate Army was winning, which they should have. They had all the better generals. They had a much more motivated troop. They were fighting for something. Lincoln went to war against the South because he argued the South, you can't leave the country. That there are, I see you, Ben. There are people who interpret the Constitution as being that one. I saw his hand up. There are people who think that we can leave this union whenever we want, that states have the right to withdraw whenever they want. Lincoln didn't see it that way. It's all in how you interpret this document. Lincoln said that it's one entity. So he was fighting to bring them back, basically, punish the child. The South saw it as something that they could constitutionally do. Yes.
So in the north, when he did the emancipation, were there no slaves or just very few?
Most states had already outlawed slavery before the Civil War because there's no economic need for it. Slaves are expensive to purchase, expensive to maintain, and there's no need. They have enough immigrant labor to exploit. All right. Yes.
So how did
What?
it's the South should have won. Why?
No, I did not say the South should have won. I said at the beginning of the war, it is not a surprise the South were more successful. But when 75% of all the railroad is in the north, when 90% of all the factories are in the north, when there's more men in the north, when there's more money in the north, eventually it was, as I asked my world history class, the other one, was World War I, what Thanos said about himself. Yeah. Sir.
Do you think the North only, or I'm not liking slavery ethically, was only because they didn't need it economically?
The abolitionist movement was an ethical thing, but for those people who wanted it, like, there were some people who didn't see the need in slavery, but it doesn't mean they saw them as equals, as people. So there's all sorts. Again, it's all a spectrum of things. Do I think the North is just ethically better than the South? No. You've been to Boston? Okay. It's true. Boston's got some racial issues.
Oh, no, I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh?
I have it.
Okay. I mean, most of the riots are in the cities because most Black people moved to the cities in the early part of the 20th century in the Great Migration. One half of that bar doesn't work. Because the army was segregated, so when the soldiers went to fight, the Blacks went north to do their jobs because they needed people to work the factories. And then the war ended, and they were forced to leave the job. All right. Anyway. Gosh, you got me talking about United States history. I hate talking about it. Okay. Industrialization accelerated after the Civil War, U.S. becoming the world's preeminent manufacturing power. We get our act together. We start chasing England down. We are well on our way to being the economic behemoth. After the Civil War is when that second industrial revolution takes place. That's your Carnegie's, Rockefeller, Vanderbilt, those folk. That's after the Civil War. By the way, if you want to go to a good engineering school, one in Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon. That's a good school. All right. Pittsburgh too, this from medicine. Anyway.
I like that. Georgia.
Yes, sir.
Pittsburgh's cooler than Atlanta.
What?
Pittsburgh is just cooler than Atlanta.
Georgia Tech's
But Georgia Tech's better, right?
Yeah, it probably depends on what type of engineering. Okay, yeah, I wouldn't go to Georgia Tech. I go to the other one in Georgia. I wouldn't go to Georgia Tech for aerospace. I go to Emory.
Really?
Yep. All right. Rural districts are being studded with villages. The villages are growing into cities, and cities are stretching out the long arms into the suburbs. Does anybody know what it's called when cities grow and grow and people move out and move out and move out? What the term is? No, no, not the people. The city itself, just kind of.
Suburban.
No, that's the dead part. It's what?
Suburban.
Bless you. Well, it's urban sprawl. Just urban sprawl goes out and out. In England, there are laws. You can only build so much of their land, so they try and limit sprawl with green spaces that are self-impermanent. Oh, the iconic picture. Not a chance. All right.
Imagine being the last guy in line, have to wait. And they want to go back.
I would do
No harnesses. Not thinking twice. They're all smoking.
Bro, you have to wait for every single
They
person
actually
to get off.
No. That's where they ate lunch.
I could.
That's a photograph.
So if you're like actually like
What if they fell?
sick, but that's not. They did.
What if they fell?
They die.
And then there's someone else waiting for them to die and take their job. Again, that's why there's no harm.
Like, how do they clean up the body?
Like
they
a hose
Do they just act like it's normal?
from that height, just a hose.
It'd be more like a
You're trouble, Dave.
Yeah, I don't know.
Driving.
Let's not think of the macabreness. All right. The United States began fully utilizing its abundance of natural resources to dominate steel, oil, and the armaments industries. That's weapons. By the way, 2021, still our number one export. Arms. Everybody. You want to buy our stuff, we'll sell it. What we do, man. That's what Eisenhower warned about. Military-industrial complex. You continually stay in war to fund your economy. Yes.
Isn't that like if we export weapons to other countries and we happen to get in a war with that country, like
It's ironic.
I mean, that's not been like that around, bro.
We did in World War One. World War One, we sold weapons to both sides. And then England's like, dude, come on. Who you got? And we're like, okay. Railroads. I bet. No. Yeah, railroads. Notice very few here. Just not in their culture. Again, the American Revolution is starting up north. It's the only place it's going to start if it's going to start based on those 13 colonies. The American Revolution was not going to start in the South. It just wasn't. Geographically, it wasn't set up the same way. Culturally, it wasn't set up the same way. It just wasn't. So bring that question up too with your English teacher or your American history teacher. You guys will be taking American history all in one thing.
Not taking it.
You can, or you take American in one semester. Yes, sir.
There aren't any railroads in New England at all.
They're just all out of New York. Those are just major lines. I'm sure there are. Same thing down there. I'm sure there are lesser lines that aren't. They're like more interstate as opposed to intra. Yeah. All right. The mechanization of farming made farms more productive. The United States became the world's preeminent food producer in the 1800s. We're mechanized. China's still by hand. They have more people, but we can turn out more crop. Again, only 2% of us farm today. That's all we need. We got machines. We got Frank and all those little tractor cows. Thing on. Hello. All right. The United States used forced relocation, reservations, war, and assimilation policies to subordinate the Native American populations. Everything but respect them. Sorry, I'm not gonna not speak out. I'm not gonna not be no biased Joe here. This is when we started giving them smallpox blankets. And again, I talked about this. They would take Native American children away from their families, send them to American schools until they learned English. They learned to dress like Americans, and act like Americans. They cut their hair, trying to make, because they felt that was what was essential to being American, that the total assimilation, which means you totally forego your culture for the dominant culture. That's what it means to assimilate. Whereas if you allow them to acculturate, they adopt what they want of your culture, they keep their culture, and it tends to work a little better. Native American tribes like the Sioux, the Apache, and the Nez Perce resisted U.S. troops, and the ghost dancing sought to restore old ways. Nez Perce, that's Off the Res is a book about them. That's a good book too. What? Oh, fixing glasses. Sorry. All right, that's City Book. I think. I can. The ghost dance was designed to create a spiritual awakening that would lead to the end of white settlement. Lots of different people throughout history have called on their ghosts and their ancestors to push out the aggressor. Ooh, there's a continent. Ooh. I am gonna lobby hard to not necessarily teach it the same way, but to teach this curriculum instead of the other curriculum, the regular water street. It's just better stuff. Right. And I think if I try hard enough, I can teach this and HUG together. Over a year. I can, yeah. Not one semester. I think there's so much overlap. Just have to figure out where to put it. I think I can do it. All right. Let me go to Disney field trip. Just walk around and point to stuff. That's that. All right. The United States economic growth continued to rely on immigrant laborers, now from Southern and Eastern Europe, which would be what countries-ish?
Spain, Italy, Greece.
Good. Turkey, but not really. But Spain, Italy, Greece, Southern Italy, the Slavic peoples, and China over on the West Coast. Ellis Island in New York, Angel Island in California. That's where the immigrants came. By the way, that's a cool tour. You ever go to New York, the Ellis Island tour, get the headphones, do the walking tour. It's pretty cool. You don't have to tell anybody you did it. Yeah.
So I know Ellis Island had a ton of people. Was Angel Island the same or
The same, well, probably, if I had to guess, probably less because of the distance and because it's pretty much Chinese.
But they kept people because they wanted like Chinese people to come in.
They kept people, Ellis Island was kept for, like when you go and take the tour, like if you were diseased, they kept ships quarantined off the coast. Like it was crazy. Like they just let everybody in, even in New York.
They had people stay there for years.
Yep.
But they would make him prove that family there said in.
Oh, this is the political cartoon about Standard Oil and industrialization and its tentacles getting in all things. Laissez-faire policies regarding big business created enormous economic inequalities in a highly polarized society, a period called the Gilded Age. Most popular Gilded Age book? Anyone? Novel? A book that takes place during this time period. You'll read it in high school, unfortunately.
That's a great guy.
Yeah. Gatsby.
Why is that important?
Oh, it's just, I still like it. You may like it. I didn't like it.
Why didn't you like it?
Just didn't speak to me.
Was it called the Golden Age because it was like dirty underneath for people?
Yeah, it was pretty on the outside and garbage. Yeah. Gilded, like just gold plated. Yes. Because of the inequalities. Economic inequalities, which lead to other inequalities.
So is this what like Teddy Roosevelt like fixed with like the trust bust?
Yes, yes. This was Teddy. This was what his big stick was used for. Trust busting. Yes. Laissez-faire. Hands off. Leave me be. All right. Whew. You are fluent in English. That French was abysmal. All right.
Never learned anything. I think bonjour is high.
Bonjour. All right.
Anyway,
1898, the United States won the Spanish-American War, briefly abandoning isolationism, just briefly, and becoming an imperial power to satisfy market needs. These are not places you take because you want a vacation. These are places that you use because they are economically beneficial. Except for me, Puerto Rico. Hawaii.
Do you think Puerto Rico should be a state?
Yes, I think DC should be a state too. Got more people than Rhode Island.
Is it really? Rhode Island is a state.
It's just one thing. What city you live
Top of my head.
No, like, maybe so. Look it up.
Hey, Siri.
692.
Yeah, 692. What's the population of Rhode Island?
1.0.
Okay. 1,056. All right. We won't know an actual population because our census got stopped short. Yeah, our last president stopped to cut it off like, yeah, he stopped it. Because if everybody is counted, then they all get the vote. Canada! We're going to talk about Canada for like 6 minutes. Okay. The Dominion of Canada. It's like the most robust, oniony name Canada's ever had. I was trying to think of a word I could do. What?
Washington DC has more people than
There you go. And a lot more to do. All right. After the American Revolution, the British granted Canadian provinces a degree of home rule. Home rule is something that England likes to do. Ireland voted for it a bunch of times, and England said, nah, not you. But in Canada, basically, you're still a part of England, but you can establish local governments and come up with your own thing and rule from home. Again, if we give them home rule, maybe they'll want to hang out with us. Austria does this with Hungary. We'll get to that, I'm sure. And then some of the other places in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, because thinking that if I let them rule themselves and kind of make their own decisions and give them a little bit of freedom, that'll be enough. All right, hoping to avoid another revolution. Halifax, Nova Scotia, if you guys have to go, is a really pretty town. Nova Scotia is pretty. I think Nova Scotia means New Scotland. Yeah. All right. English guys, French guys. Canada, mostly British, but was a former French colony with a large French minority. This division makes national identity problematic. Every so often, the Quebecois will vote for should they be independent, because they don't want to be with the English-speaking pig dogs. They want to be with their French-speaking brethren. Again, if you go to Quebec, all the signs are in French first, English second. If you go to a hockey game, or back when they had the Expos, the stats and the announcements were given in French first, and then English. That's how I learned home run in French. It's a circuit. That's what it means. Circuit is home run. Circle the bases. Circuit. But there you go. New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Halifax, pretty. Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, because it was Newfoundland. Names. So nice. All right. And then out there in like Tundraville.
What happened to the Expos?
The Florida Marlins.
Oh.
Yeah, they went from one extreme to the next. From French speaking to that style. Art Deco. All right. In 1867, the British North America Act joined Quebec, Ontario, Nova Scotia, and New Brunswick together as the Dominion of Canada. Why not? The District of Keewatin, the Northwest Territories. Oh, any risk players out there? There's the Northwest Territories. And British Columbia. I want to go there. I want to go to Vancouver.
Yeah, I've been there.
Is it?
So British Columbia, the Northwest, that's not part of Canada yet.
It's not part of the Dominion of Canada. No, it's not. All right.
Why don't we just like steal it? Then I'd like all the way to Alaska.
I'm sure it was part of the deal for ending the revolution, and then after the War of 1812. Just you gotta make deals, you gotta make compromises. Not only that, in 1812, would we have been in a position to manage this? In 1815, 1880, after the Civil War, we couldn't have managed this. If we had taken Mexico, which is what James K. Polk wanted to do after the Mexican War, he wanted to annex Mexico. You know, when you lose, you lose. But rumor has it the message didn't get there in time. Yes, you may. No, what's up?
I was just asking if I could use my phone to take notes because it's being weird. I plugged it into the other side, but it's still in the
Yeah, he does. Well, not that side. This side.
Oh.
Okay. Oh, more Canada. Anyway, Canada granted independence after a series of agreements with Britain. Canada remains part of the British Commonwealth of Nations. All these places in blue are independent countries, but they are part of the British Commonwealth. They used to, I don't know if they still do, they used to have the Commonwealth Games, and the Commonwealth countries would come together and they would compete. And obviously, because there's England, and then I'm sure that in the Commonwealth Games, there are certain sports that wouldn't be in the Olympics, like cricket, which I kind of don't get. Anyway. The Queen of England still appears on Canadian currency. Their money is really cool. It's all colorful. Most of the world's money is cooler than ours. Although in the last 5-10 years, we started to add a little color. but like there's, but no, not even the blue stripe. Even looking at, if you look at a $10 bill from 10 years apart, they're not the same bill. And don't take weathering into account. There's different tints on. All right.
Yeah, because we change them every like 4 years, 5 years.
Like this.
We need to get rid of the penny. Get rid of the penny.
I have $16.
And I'd rather get rid of the dollar bill and have a dollar coin.
What?
Probably cool.
Canada has a dollar coin.
We
And that's in mass circulation. All right.
did change the square.
Yes. What?
But I feel like that's the highest you go. Because in Japan, they have 500 yen coin. So if you lose one of those, it's like you're losing a $5 bill.
But it's only $5. Thank you.
I mean, in the grand scheme of things,
True,
it's $5.
true.
But if I drop $5, that's a lot of money to me.
But but I'm gonna play devil's advocate. If I drop a $5 bill, if I drop a $5 coin, which one am I gonna hear?
That's it.
But you're right. To have like a $5, like that would stink. Like to lose it. Yeah. All right. Oh, the agreement to remain as one country, partly due to the fear the United States would conquer Canada. So there you go. The reason all those Canadian places came together wasn't because of England, it was because of us. And after the War of 1812, we were like, shoot, let's go. I want syrup. I want poutine. I can't. One day I will. Just cover my eyes and I'll do it. I want lacrosse. What? Yeah, it's Canadian.
I was
Yes, Canadian. Native American. Iroquois Nation and north of there. Anyway,
Isn't the Iroquois Nation also in America?
I said the Iroquois Nation and north of there. Yes. Yeah.
So it's American and Canadian.
I think
Canadian.
It's North American.
it is North American. Native American. Canada developed a parliamentary system like Britain, the prime minister and a parliament. That's nice. The sovereign is the queen. Oh, this is so sad now. It's not by herself. Then you have the prime minister, then you have the parliament, and then you have the judiciary. So kind of three branches. You got the queen, which is like the, for lack of better examples, like a pope. The top, and then you have the prime minister who rules the country. Then you have his courts and his laws. All right. Excellent. Da-da-da. Yes, Mounties. Canada expanded west to the Pacific as other parts of British North America joined it. There you go. Sometime in 1874. Keep going. Manitoba expanded. Sometime in 1886. Ontario expands. Okay, we got to talk about. All right. Is that it? Okay. 19th century Latin America. All right. Canada, US, Latin America. Latin America, there it is. Latin American nations face similar challenges to the United States and Canada after independence. Both that they all want the same thing once you're independent. Heck, every country, I would argue, or assert, I don't need to argue, wants political stability and economic stability. They want a government that's going to be there a while and an economic system that's going to allow them to move forward, take care of their people. Yes, sir. Yeah.
It's Quebec, Latin America.
Pardon?
Because it's Latin, it's French. Do some people consider that Latin America?
Canada?
Yeah.
No.
Quebec.
No. It's because of who settles. Predominantly the settlers here are from the Iberian Peninsula. Portugal and Spain. Almost all of that is Portuguese. Huh?
I thought French and Latin was all the Romance languages.
I understand what you're saying, but that's just not how they were labeled. Because France has always been France. I understand your point. No, is the answer. Okay. All right. Unlike the United States and Canada, Simon Bolivar, one of those submarines was named for him too. Dreams of unification never came about. He actually wanted to unify what is South America, well, the Spanish-speaking part, into one Uber country. See, you can't use that word. Uber has ruined that word.
What did it?
Not ruined, but it's changed the meaning. Uber meant super, great, immense, ginormous.
So you can still have it.
Yes, it is contextual. Amazon rainforest, Andes Mountains, Andes Mountains, Andes Mountains turn into the Rockies. All the same chain, more or less. Geographic features like the Andes and the Amazon River provided or proved to be barriers. So, again, geography is determining how this is going to turn out. Rainforests are relatively impenetrable. They're full of animals that will kill you. This big, little tree frogs, jaguars, pythons that eat women. I saw that in the news. She was checking her crops. I don't know how a python sneaks up on you, but the water, no. Well, if it's swimming, yeah, but I think
Some degree.
okay.
If it's that big.
All right,
It would be.
in the water would make more sense. Okay, regionalism. Identity with a region rather than a large area was also something else that made it difficult to unify this country, this region. This is what made it difficult for Simon Bolivar. People saw themselves part of the Amazon basin or they were Amerindians, and they didn't see themselves as Peruvian or Bolivian or Colombian. Yes.
It's like the same thing that made it difficult to unify Italy.
Look at that connection right there. That's what I'm talking about. That is what I'm talking about. Yes. That is what I'm talking about. Let's go. All right. Now, what? All right. And again, whoops. Too far. Also, so you got different geographic regions, then you have different ethnic regions in a way. Like if you are a native, but you've been under Spanish authority, or these are all different languages that are spoken, that's going to make things difficult to get everybody to come together. If you don't have one unifying language, that's a challenge. So there were other barriers that the United States didn't have. There's a benefit to being monolingual. Unity. It is a centripetal force. Wait. Yeah, it's a centripetal force. All right.
So, are the Falklands like a part of Argentina? Or is it like a separate?
Falkland Islands are part of England. Great Britain. There's a war in the early 80s. All right. Yep.
See, the island was very in the south part right next to the Turkey. Like there.
Oh,
Yeah.
aren't those like frozen?
No, but penguins do dig. The United States overcame regionalism in the Civil War. Canada overcame regionalism through fear of the United States invading them. There was nothing like that in South America to aid them in unifying. So again, this whole unit is doing a nice job of being able to show you things that are similar and then ultimately one big difference. The United States and Canadian experience with self-rule promoted a lot of that because they're in their countries of origin. There had been a history of that. There was no history of self-rule in the Latin American places that were starting to develop. Analogous, to in a different kind of way, analogous to Haiti. So these people have always been ruled by someone else. They were brought over by someone else in a lot of instances. So the concept of ruling ourselves and making political policy and economic decisions for ourselves is foreign to these countries. So they have to learn all of this as they go to try and, at some point catch up with countries that are already way ahead of them. Yes.
Is this all?
Yes. Plus or minus, yeah. Latin American independence movements led by Creole elites. And who are the Creoles? Do we remember?
who were
People
born in-
who stayed before in Latin.
Yes, Spanish parents born in Argentina, first generation, and those people, those families, with those enlightened ideas, because they are going to make it over. Ideas can diffuse. Ideas can be something important, but just no practical experience. So, it's full of idealism and not a lot of practical experience. The poor did not participate in public affairs. Opposition to leaders often took form of rebellion. So, the poor didn't vote. The poor didn't engage in discussion. The poor fought. Again, what do you know? What is your history? What is your experience? That's how you're going to behave. Well, this guy looks fancy coming up here. Oh, yeah. Personalist rule was common. Charismatic individuals would seize power and then rule authoritarianly. Follow me. Do what I say. And then you realize that they're really a, toolbox. And then you're stuck with it. Bolivar did try, and as long as he was alive, there is some sense of unity. But as soon as he dies, it disintegrates. Caudillos, independent military leaders, I think I'm pronouncing that right, seized power in many Latin American countries. They are prone to lots of coups d'etats. They exist even today. Again, the history of the coup d'etat is not Latin American in its origin, but we hear of them a lot. Again, when you see your leader wearing a uniform, it's not going to bode well. Because what's to keep another leader in a uniform from taking him over? This is very Roman. It's very, toward the end of the Roman Empire, when it's just one general after another. And the only people who are loyal to him are his army. Charismatic men and people without plans, people who don't have a vision, tend to lose luster quickly. They tend to not be able to keep the people involved. An anti-Rosas cartoon. Yes, it is. Juan Manuel de Rosas. Caudillo Juan Manuel de Rosas ruled Argentina relying on a cult of personality and state terrorism. So he's like, what's a cult of personality? Anybody? Good, thank you. Anyone? That's this part. What is the term of a cult of personality?
Believing yourself to be like the best. Like putting yourself out there.
That would be a narcissist. Yes.
Like the trying to get a nation to follow you in your ideas.
But what's a cult? What's a cult?
It is. People like follow.
A group of people who habitually they're following a personality.
Yeah.
They're following the charisma. He has no, it's not that. It's not a dictator.
No, what is it?
It's not, that guy's cool. Let's follow him. We just witnessed it. Except the state terrorism did it. All right. That requires organization. Rojas is a negative memory in Argentina. He left behind him the black legend of Argentine history, a legend which Argentines in general wish to forget. That's good. There's no monument to him in the entire nation. No park, plaza, or street bears his name. And that's as of 1961. That's how there's nothing to tear down if you don't ever build it. All right. It's in the books, so they haven't erased it. No monuments, still history. All right. The Catholic Church played a role in creating political instability. I'm sure it did. Catholic Church is still involved in politics in the Americas, in South America particularly. Large Catholic population in South America. It's going to, again, to whom are you going to place your loyalty, your devotion, especially to the poorer, rural people of South America? Which, like most of the world, was most people? Yep. I don't have all my pre-cut PowerPoints anymore. I don't know when this one ends. Like I went and cut up the entire last PowerPoint into chunks. All right. Oh, nice. In Mexico, Benito Juarez, a liberal personalist leader, created La Reforma movement to limit power of the military and the church. But again, he's using his own personality to supersede other people influencing lives. So it's not really a plan. It's just, look, I'm not them. Follow me. Juarez. A liberal personalist. So again, probably reformer. It's 1854. The key components of the La Reforma, de Grego, abolishing clerical and communal properties, creating freedom of religion, and complete separation of church and state. De Juarez, abolishing separate military and religious courts. So church and state are separate, and crime is crime is crime. Whether you're in the army, or whether you're part of the church, or whether you're a citizen of Mexico, a crime is a crime. Obviously, if you're in the army, you're a citizen, but you get what I'm saying. Okay. Interesting. Mexican dictator, Porfirio Diaz ended the reform and restored privileges to the elite. Mexico remains chaotic into the 20th century. And a lot of that has to do with proximity, has to do with the American influence to the north, has to do with the Spanish influence throughout its history, has to do with the native influence, has to do with all sorts of things. Migration, all the instability in the south and what will become Central America is going to filter into Mexico. So its positioning between those two regions probably doesn't help its or probably doesn't do much to assuage its instability. The lack of experience with capitalism, limited economic development in Latin America made industrialization difficult. Again, they've been farmers and they've been growing goods to just send somewhere else so that the people in power could benefit from. The idea of an economic system and a platform, the idea of knowing how to industrialize is not something they have experience with, and it's already 1850, 1860. Think of how far ahead Europe is. Think about how far ahead the United States is. And this part of the world has got to figure out how to keep up, catch up, maintain itself. All these countries that begin to get their independence in the Americas, and then in the 20th century, we get to Africa and into different parts of Asia, all struggle because they're even that much further behind. But they have a couple of things which are different, and that is in the Middle East, they have experience with the market economy. So there are things that are going to help them. So much stuff. Britain, France, and the United States invested heavily in Latin America, creating jobs. But these foreign powers also controlled the profit. So you can work for us, but we're taking the money out. That's the whole transnational corporation stuff. Yes, your people can work for me, but it's my company. Outsourcing. It is outsourcing. British investors helped develop meat industry. Cattle is huge in Argentina. They're one of the largest beef producers in the world today. And now they make wine. Pretty good one. Chile does too. When you're 21, or if you have progressive parents, they treat you like you're in France. You can. The United States worked with Mexico dictators like Diaz to control Mexican infrastructure, cash crop production, and mineral resources. It's almost like they treated Mexico like a protectorate. That's interesting. That's when, like, you're still Mexico, but we kind of pull strings a little bit. Like we're still helping you make decisions that are in your best interest, but really in our best interest.
Is that what happened with Hawaii?
Yes. And then we just annexed it and said, we'll just take you. Yeah. Latin American economies grew in the 19th century, but also grew more dependent on foreign investment. So they grow, but they're not able to make money, and that's not good for them. Latin American countries remain dependent on slavery despite abolitionist movement. The global demands for sugar are high. This is primarily in Brazil. the need labor for any kind of profit. And again, yes, sir,
What year is this that they're still talking about slavery?
1850s, 1860s? Yeah, it's not like 20th century.
Yeah.
Slavery remained in the Caribbean and Brazil until the 1880s. There you go. True. Okay.
I thought they abolished in 1840.
And where?
Brazil.
No, there wasn't. No, remember the Southerners went there after the Civil War because it was still a thing.
Yeah, but
Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow.
remember when they abolished it.